The night after my wife's funeral, my children sat across from me in the living room we had shared for nearly 40 years. Their faces were serious. Too serious. For a brief moment, I thought they were about to comfort me, maybe hug me, maybe tell me that even though their mother was gone, we would still face life together as a family. Instead, my oldest son leaned forward and said something that made my entire world go silent. "Dad, you can't stay in this house anymore." I remember staring at him, waiting for him to laugh and say he was joking. But no one laughed. Not Daniel. Not Rebecca. Not Jason. My wife had been buried less than 24 hours earlier. And already, my own children were trying to push me out of the home their mother and I had built with decades of love. What they didn't understand was this. They thought their father was weak. They thought grief had broken me. But that night, something inside me changed forever. Welcome to my YouTube channel Moral Echoes, where silence speaks. My children tried to kick me out after my wife died, but I turned my back on them and a life story told by Michael, 60 years old. My name is Michael. I am 60 years old. And this is the story of how the people I loved the most betrayed me, and how I walked away from them with my dignity intact. A love that lasted almost 40 years. Before I tell you what happened that night, you need to understand something about my wife. Her name was Linda. She wasn't just my wife. She was my best friend, my partner, and the heart of our entire family. We met when we were young. I was 22 years old, working long hours at a small mechanic shop. My hands were always dirty with grease, and my dreams were simple: work hard, build a home, and someday raise a family. Linda walked into my life like sunlight breaking through clouds. I first saw her at a little cafe near the garage where I worked. She was standing at the counter arguing politely with the cashier because he had given her the wrong change. Not angrily, just firmly. She had this quiet strength about her. When she turned around and our eyes met, she smiled politely before walking past me. That smile stayed in my mind for the rest of the day. 2 weeks later, I gathered the courage to ask her out. She laughed and said, "I was wondering how long it would take you." That was Linda. Warm, playful, and braver than I ever was. We fell in love quickly. Within 2 years, we were married. And from that moment forward, everything we built together. Building a family. Our first house wasn't impressive. It was small. The roof leaked sometimes. The kitchen cabinets were older than both of us. But Linda loved it. She planted flowers in the yard and painted the walls soft colors that made the house feel warm. "This place will be beautiful," she told me one afternoon as we stood in the empty living room. I laughed. It already is. Because she was there. Soon, our family began to grow. Our first child, Daniel, was born when I was 27. Then came Rebecca 3 years later. And finally, our youngest, Jason, who surprised us when we thought our family was already complete. Linda was an incredible mother. She packed lunches, helped with homework, stayed awake during fevers. She loved our children with every part of her heart. And I believed they loved her just as much. For many years, our home was full of laughter. Birthday parties, Christmas mornings, family dinners around the big wooden table Linda insisted we buy. Back then, I thought we were the kind of family people write stories about. I never imagined that one day, that same family would sit across from me and try to take everything away. The day everything changed. 3 years before Linda passed away, something began to feel wrong. She was always tired. At first, we thought it was just age or stress. But then the doctor ordered tests. I still remember the moment the doctor said the word cancer. The room felt smaller. Linda squeezed my hand. I tried to stay calm, but my heart felt like it was falling into darkness. The next 2 years were the hardest years of our lives. Chemotherapy drained her strength. Some days she couldn't even stand without help. So I became her caregiver. I cooked. I cleaned. I drove her to every hospital appointment. At night, when the pain became too much for her, I held her and whispered, "We're going to get through this." But deep inside, I knew we were running out of time. The children who slowly drifted away. During those 2 years, I expected our children to come together. I thought they would support their mother. But something strange happened. They started visiting less and less. Daniel always said he was busy with work. Rebecca claimed her kids needed her. Jason traveled constantly for business. Sometimes weeks would pass without seeing them. Linda never complained, but I could see the disappointment in her eyes. One evening she whispered to me, "Michael, did we do something wrong?" My heart broke. "No," I told her. "We raised them the best we could." But deep down, I wondered the same thing. Her final night. The night before she died, Linda asked me to sit beside her. Her voice was soft and weak, but her eyes were calm. "Michael," she said gently, "promise me something." "Anything." She looked toward the window for a moment before speaking again. "Don't let anyone push you aside after I'm gone." I frowned. "What do you mean?" She hesitated. "I've overheard the kids talking about the house, about money." I shook my head. "They wouldn't do that." But Linda simply smiled sadly. "Just promise me you'll stand up for yourself." I held her hand and whispered, "I promise." She passed away peacefully the next morning. The funeral. The funeral was quiet and emotional. Neighbors came. Friends shared stories about Linda's kindness. Many people cried. But my children seemed distant. Daniel checked his phone often. Rebecca spoke mostly with her husband. Jason stood silently near the back of the room. I thought they were just grieving in their own way. I didn't realize something darker was already in their minds. The night of betrayal. The evening after the funeral, my children asked to talk. We sat in the living room, the same room where Linda and I had danced together on our anniversary just months earlier. Daniel cleared his throat. "Dad, we need to talk about the house." My stomach tightened. "What about it?" Rebecca leaned forward. "We think it's time to sell it." For a moment, I thought I misheard. "Sell it?" Jason nodded. "It's too big for you now." Daniel added, "And it would be fair if we split the money." The words felt like knives in my chest. My wife had been gone one day, and they were already planning how to divide her home. The secret Linda left behind. I stood slowly and walked to the bookshelf. There was a small folder hidden behind some photo albums. Linda had given it to me months earlier. Inside were legal documents. I placed them on the table. "There's something you should know," I said calmly. Daniel looked annoyed. "What?" "This house belongs entirely to me." Rebecca grabbed the papers. Her eyes widened. "That's impossible." But it was. Months before she died, Linda had transferred full ownership to me. She knew exactly what might happen after she was gone. Their true faces. Instead of accepting it, my children became angry. Daniel accused me of manipulating their mother. Rebecca shouted that it wasn't fair. Jason called me selfish. Selfish? After everything Linda and I had done for them. That was the moment I realized something painful. The children we raised were gone. In their place stood strangers who cared more about money than family. Walking away. So I made a decision. A difficult one, but the right one. You want the house so badly, I said quietly. They nodded eagerly. Fine. Their eyes lit up. But then I added, you can have it. They looked shocked. But there's one condition. What? You will never see me again. Silence filled the room. I packed my bag that night. Before leaving, I walked through the garden Linda loved so much. I touched the roses she planted and whispered, I kept my promise. A new life at 60. Starting over at 60 isn't easy. But sometimes it's necessary. I moved to a small coastal town. Bought a small cottage. Started repairing boats at a marina. For the first time in years, life felt peaceful again. Neighbors became friends. The ocean became my therapy. And slowly, my broken heart began to heal. 2 years later, one evening my phone rang. It was Daniel. His voice sounded tired. Dad, the house is gone. Apparently, the 3 siblings fought constantly after I left. Arguments. Lawsuits. Eventually, they sold the house and divided the money. Now it was all gone. Just like the family they had destroyed. Can we visit you? He asked quietly. I looked at the ocean outside my window. Then I remembered Linda's final words. No, I said softly. You made your choice. And I hung up. The moral of my story. Losing my wife was the hardest moment of my life. But betrayal taught me an important lesson. Family is not about blood. Family is about love, loyalty, and respect. If those things disappear, then the relationship is already broken. My name is Michael. I am 60 years old. And even after losing the love of my life and the family I raised, I discovered something powerful. Sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is walk away from those who no longer value them. And when you do, life has a strange way of giving you peace again. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because every story here leaves behind a lesson.